Hello and welcome to this episode of the Security Journal America's Leaders in Security podcast series, produced in partnership with Resolver. I'm your host, Victoria Hanscomb, and I'm the editor of Security Journal Americas. In this episode, I am joined by Artem Sherman, Division Head, Security and Investigations at Resolver. Artem, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Victoria.
It's great to have you here, and such a pleasure to be speaking with you again. I know we've met a couple of times now at various shows, so yeah, lovely to be chatting with you again today. So before we get into our discussion on why security teams deserve better tools and how AI is changing the way we protect people, assets, and reputation, could you just share a little bit of your background with us for our listeners?
Yeah, certainly. So I come from a domain. So prior to joining Resolver about 5 years ago, I have a 20-year background in security and investigations in a variety of roles. And my latest stint in the security and investigation space, I was responsible for technology and analytics, centralized investigations, threat protection, corporate investigations, as well as security system design for TJX Canada. And I was supporting the Canadian business. I then joined Resolver in the product function, where I've had the privilege and pleasure of learning SaaS product management and that side of the industry. And I now get to lead the Security and Investigations division at Resolver, where I have the privilege of being able to take what I've experienced and learned from working in industry, from my peers, and the common challenges that we all face, and solve those problems, not just for one organization and one set of teams, but globally.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. And as you mentioned there, you've worked with a lot of corporate security teams throughout your pretty impressive career. So can you tell me a little bit about what's changing in the threats that corporate security teams face? And how does that affect how they then work?
What we're seeing is that the world is becoming less and less predictable. We, in the past couple of years, have seen a significant increase in workplace-related crimes, with executive targeting being up there as well. Of course, there's many notable events that have occurred in that area. We're seeing security teams have to deal with a higher volume of incidents, a greater variety of incidents, and we're seeing that threat actors are less predictable and are harder to protect against. We never know what the next kind of level of innovation or creativity they'll apply to what it is that they're trying to do. So everything from drone incursions. There's been tens of thousands of drone incursions across the United States in large events. We're seeing a lot more technology-backed and kind of software-based crimes, with AI advancing much more quickly, where the capabilities are democratized for the threat actors, where they low-scale, low-capability attackers can now launch attacks that have real impact towards organizations, and it's becoming increasingly more difficult to cover the gamut of the possible with how fast innovation for the good, but also for the bad, is moving.
Yeah, absolutely. So considering all of those challenges and the evolving nature of threats that security teams are facing, where do you see security teams struggling the most at the moment?
Where we see them struggle the most is truly the volume of activity. There's more expectation on those teams. There's more expectations for them to deliver that broad coverage. And as a result, they're taking on more and more. organizations are not necessarily spending more on protecting against these additional threats. Generally, it's considered, this is a security issue. It's the job to react to the evolving nature of security threats as they do. And as such, the volume of events is significantly increasing, while capacity, especially when it comes to people, remains the same.
Mm. And so thinking about how security can impact an entire organization now, of course, what a security team does can affect and influence the way a business operates. But it'd be great if you could delve a little bit deeper into how these problems really impact the rest of an organization. So not just for security, but for business overall.
Yeah, absolutely. We have seen this kind of pattern over the past couple of decades where some of the more forward-looking security practitioners realize that they are not just a security function. They're not there to be reactive, albeit that is a key part of the job. Of course, you have to have the mechanisms in place to react to an event should it occur. But security is becoming more and more interconnected across the organization. And we're seeing really good success stories and examples of security functions being closer integrated as they should be, because they are a key part of the risk functions within organizations, legal, human resources, and safety teams. And in the most integrated organizations, we also see security be a big part of the overall culture of that org. So that's a battle we, as security practitioners, have to continuously fight to kind of break out of the guards, guns, and gates mindset. And a big part of that is demonstrating to the org that security needs to be a more important stakeholder, and how they could ensure that organizations can achieve their outcomes better by integrating security into how they operate overall.
I want to drill down into that idea a little bit more. You mentioned about the, guards and guns there, that traditional view of security, which has certainly been evolving for a while now. But in your opinion, how do you think the role of security has changed in the last few years? I mean, we see a lot of innovations and technological changes coming out. But what would you say are some of the biggest ways that it's changed?
Yeah, so I think some of the innovations that have helped security become a more prominent part within an organization is the intelligence and monitoring capabilities, where security was able to be proactive as well as inform the business of risks that might not be directly security related or might have other components outside of just a security impact. And some parallels started existing between reputation and security, as an example, because in monitoring what is going on out there in the world and monitoring the threats against your organization, certainly those threats are not all physical. Many of them are virtual, cyber, reputational, and the security teams that got on that monitoring, proactive intelligence bandwagon have been able to benefit through that organic ability to integrate further with the business by being able to show that by looking out at the horizon, they could support protecting the organization and achieving its goals beyond, of course, just the guards, guns, and gates piece, but by allowing the organization to react and to pivot as necessary in a forward-looking way.
And I think certainly, a lot of people, when they think about the security industry evolving, the words AI and automation come to mind. I think we hear these words used a lot and these phrases used a lot. So, in your opinion, what's the real challenge that they should help to solve? I think there's a lot of information that could be quite confusing for people out there, and potentially some conflicting information. So, it'd be great if you could set the record straight and explain to our listeners, what challenge can they help to solve?
Yeah, I think that's a very important question. We all see kind of the current wave of AI innovation, primarily focused around large language models, as very exciting. It's a big boom overall across all industries. But the key is to be able to see through the noise and figure out, where do I actually want to apply that? So it really necessitates a pragmatic lens, because there's certainly a desire to adopt new technology. The promise of AI seems sometimes fantastical a little bit. We see some headlines that entire departments and roles could be replaced with AI, and for those that have actually implemented these new AI capabilities, it's quite obvious that that's not necessarily the right path or the most successful way to do this. So the way I think about where AI matters most is that what we do, the key problems, the fundamental basic elements of security work and investigative work remain the same. They are stable. If folks want to dig a little bit deeper, there's a framework called jobs to be done. And the premise behind that framework, which is usually applied to product management, not just in software but overall, is that there is a stable set of problems that continues to persist, and it's just how we solve those problems. The available applications of technology and capabilities to solve these problems can certainly evolve, and you could solve these problems in ways that are automated and eliminate the need to do them, or you could solve these problems by doing them faster, cheaper, better, to a higher level of quality. So as an example, we'll always have to be able to cut a piece of wood in half. But if we think historically, the way we've cut a piece of wood in half has certainly evolved from hand tools to better hand tools to power tools to much better power tools. And of course, the way we cut other things in half with lasers and water jets and things like that has certainly evolved, allowed the outputs of that to be much higher. So that way we can manufacture more things, allowed the speed, the quality, the precision of those things to significantly improve. But the reality is there's still a whole bunch of solutions and products and technologies that are optimizing how we cut things in half, whether it's a piece of metal or a piece of wood. So I think about what we do in security in a similar fashion, and that the core problems, the core work that needs to be done is essentially the same. And in that, you could start thinking a little bit more pragmatically on where AI fits in, because ultimately AI is a more sophisticated, more capable automation technique, right? So it could be like you're laser cutting metal instead of cutting it with hand tools or a saw. So it's the next iteration of really capable automation. So if I'm a security practitioner and I want to maximize outcomes, I want to have the most impact with how I adopt technology, I would look to the things that cause me the most pain, the things that overall I don't do well, or take too much time to do, or are very expensive to do, which taking too much time to do is certainly a contributor to that. So if we start focusing in on the repetitive things, those are the areas to tackle, right? If you do something that takes you 5 minutes, but you do it 100,000 times a year, that really adds up. And while it might seem not shiny and not very impressive to solve some of those boring areas, or some of those mundane kind of repetitive administrative pieces, those are the most impactful. And likewise, quality is another piece of that. So when you're thinking about your ability to get insight into data or collect good data, even though the volumes might be similar, you're already collecting the data and you have it, but how can you get more out of what you have? So that's another area where AI could be massively beneficial in helping you structure your data, helping you extract the better insights, patterns and trends that you might not be otherwise obvious with traditional methods, or basic BI reporting and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are a lot of benefits to using automated technologies that can provide us with insights that we weren't able to have in the past. But I think there's still some uncertainty, potentially even fear sometimes surrounding these technologies. So what would you say to someone that was a bit uncertain of adopting these kinds of technologies? How can they genuinely help them? What would you say to that person? And also, what makes automation useful instead of risky?
Yeah, that's a very important topic, I would say. So on the uncertainty piece, what I would observe is, like anything new, there's a lot of fear and uncertainty about it, and there is a lot of caution that is necessary with relying on something so new, so untested, and something that is constantly changing and evolving for critical work, right? Because I can certainly ensure that the way I manage my investigation is based on years of experience, based on my SOPs, based on kind of the best practices, and what we would otherwise call, I guess, experience and intuition. And I know that I would do it right? So it's scary to kind of hand it off sometimes, especially at scale, especially for critical things. But what I would observe there is that the world is moving in that direction, whether we want to or not. So if it's something that there is fear and uncertainty about, the best way to cure that, and the best way to figure out where the gaps are, is to tackle it head on. Because 5 years from now, the people that haven't adopted AI in their workflows, in their processes, in their solutions, in the work that they do, will be significantly behind when they are now ready and comfortable, and now it's proven. They'll be too far behind to effectively catch up to all of the efficiencies that have been realized through adopting this technology. So the best way is to explore it, to learn the most about it, to adopt it in less risky ways, in doing pilots, seeing how that works, partially transitioning your processes in a constrained way to pilot this AI capability or tooling that has AI in it, or just a new way of working and new processes. And then in there, you'll also learn to optimize. You'll see where the gaps are. You'll be able to provide feedback to the vendors, or your own organization that's building some of these process improvements and solutions. But the worst option is to sit back and not evolve with the rest of the world. So, but caution is warranted, and it is important that we scrutinize and that we ensure that the quality of outputs, the consistency of the work that's been done, is to the standards that are required of us, because ultimately we are accountable for the outputs of our functions and our programs, our processes, and the work that we and our teams do. And to that end, I do believe that we must remain a key part of the process. I would be very hesitant to personally hand off completing an investigation, let's say, to some AI agent a couple of years from now, where maybe that's fully possible end-to-end investigative work and things like that. I think it's important that somebody's always accountable to that output. Somebody gets to review that, gets to sign off on, yes, this is done correctly. This is, I agree with these outcomes. I agree with these outputs. Because it is a field where the technology changes constantly. So we are also accountable to staying on top of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose another way that can bring people around to these kinds of technologies and to help demonstrate the advantages of using AI and automation within security is use cases and real world examples of where they've been used. So would you be able to provide an example where you've seen technology make security work safer or more efficient?
Absolutely, yes. I think overall, that statement is very true. Technology has been a force multiplier for security over the years, and I mean, frankly, AI and security isn't in itself a new concept. We're really focused in when we're talking AI is the current AI wave with large language models and the capabilities that those bring. But some of the simplest technological advances, such as the ability to centralize CCTV monitoring, historically has been a massive force multiplier for security. Where back in the day we had local CCTV and local guards that would swap tapes on recorders and monitor things locally and react to things locally with digital CCTV capabilities and the ability to do that remotely over the internet. We could have a 24/7 SOC that reduces our need to be able to cover with people, multiple locations, and we could ensure safety of employees and patrons and customers over large distances with much smaller teams. So in the same sense, modern AI capabilities are doing that for us as well. So there are solutions out there that help more rapidly ingest and automate incident response. That is something that usually gets stuck in a queue of work, relies on kind of human intervention, and creates massive delays in the ability to understand that a new incident has occurred or is being reported, and creates that bottleneck for our ability to effectively respond and triage. So automating ingesting incidents and triaging incidents allows security teams to take that to zero. So reduce the delay to respond to incidents from maybe minutes to sometimes hours, because there's a large queue, to zero in that instantly those things are ingested, structured, understood what they are, routed to the correct place, and response actions could be initiated. Massively critical when you're dealing with large volumes. And there are scenarios where, the 347th item in that queue is actually an important one that needs your attention. Taking that time to zero and speeding up incident response is an absolutely a massive advantage for security teams.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, as we have discussed throughout this podcast, there's still a lot of skepticism about AI and security. And I think a lot of people out there who are listening to this some of them still might have questions or, again, that uncertainty around it. But I think sometimes some of that can come from some misconceptions. So this is your chance now to set the record straight and, answer, what do leaders get wrong about AI, and particularly within the context of security?
Yeah, I think when we look at broader headlines on some of the pitfalls of the bleeding edge of AI technology, and there's certainly some scary examples of AI going rogue and things like that, and some salacious stories out there. The reality is that enterprise solutions are built to enterprise standards. And when I would engage with a vendor, I would want to make sure that they have good controls in place, that they've built it to a standard where your data remains yours, right? Because that's another concern that organizations have of, well, is anything I do within the tool going to be used to train ChatGPT or Gemini or et cetera? So you want to answer all of those concerns. You want to make sure that you're buying an enterprise solution, that your data remains yours, that the data protection pieces are in place as they should be for any piece of enterprise software, right? So vendors should not get a free pass just because it's got the AI sparkles on it. They still have to be accountable to the same level of data protection, whether they use AI or any other technology in building out your solution. And I would also want to understand that there's a level of transparency in those solutions. So something that's important to us at Resolver is that anything we automate with AI is fully transparent. There are audit trails, and the customer can inspect the decisions that have been made. So if there's any decision, such as something as simple as classifying an incident or making routing choices, all of that has to be transparent. You should be able to inspect it, and you should be able to override it. We firmly believe that AI is there to help people do the best work possible, not replace them doing the job. So we are certainly passionate about eliminating tasks, but we are also passionate about giving people superpowers to make the most impact. And I think asking those right questions, being transparent about your concerns and fears with applying this towards your org will tell you what you need to know if this piece of technology is something that you should try and engage with.
Amazing. And I suppose it answers the question of the professionals who might feel uncertain or unsure of these technologies and how they might be able to be used. But I think there are also a lot of options out there. So even if there's a security professional who is eager to embrace these technologies, but just isn't sure where to start and feels a little overwhelmed by what's out there on the market, what would you say to that security professional to reassure them or perhaps guide them in the right direction?
Well, I think at this point, every security professional is going to have peers that are ahead of the game, right? There's always that 15% early adopter piece where there are people that are rushing to try the new capabilities and experiment with new technology, and certainly not everybody is as fortunate to have the funding and capacity to experiment that way. But we all have peers that have done so, that are already very deep in doing their own things and adopting things like Copilot in their daily workflows as they do security work in kind of the simplest way, and also experimenting with AI capabilities in the tooling that they use every day. So I would say peer networks, social proof. I mean that is a key element of that. When you see that other practitioners that are focused on similar things as you, that their stakes are as high as yours, have successfully adopted it, they could help you navigate what they don't like, what has not worked, what has worked. So I'm a big fan of utilizing social proof if you're not an early adopter, and learn from others' experimentation, mistakes and successes.
Definitely. So overall, what gives you optimism about where this field is heading? What might we be seeing in the future, maybe near or slightly further away on the horizon?
Yeah, I'm very optimistic now, and more so than I was a year ago, in that I'm seeing more adoption. I'm seeing that we are getting over the hump of, the hesitating to adopt AI. It's been proven successful in multiple examples. It's gotten soaked a little bit, right? So there's many use cases. There's many. Most of the common day-to-day tooling that we use in all of our jobs has elements of AI. Our browsers have it, our phones have it. So we're certainly over the hump of adoption, and we're now overall there's a trend in focusing on the pragmatic, right? So, okay, it's less scary. There's more controls now. There's proven solutions out there. So how can I actually apply it in a way that benefits me? So that makes me massively optimistic. I think that's going to accelerate the next phase of evolution and applications, because frankly, the more customers, the more practitioners embrace AI and start using it in their day-to-day, the better the entire industry can narrow in on where that can make the most impact and solve problems that matter, and also utilize the collective brain power of all of the practitioners in having new ideas that none of us have thought of. So I'm massively excited by the uptake and adoption and what that will do for innovation over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think it'll be very exciting to see how the industry embraces the opportunities that will be made available to them over the next few years, as you say. Well, thank you so much, Artem. It's been really fascinating to speak with you today. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Victoria.
Of course. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in to this Security Journal America's Leaders in Security podcast, produced in partnership with Resolver. I've been your host, Victoria Hanscomb. Make sure to keep an eye and an ear out for our next episode coming soon.